Hey everybody, in today's video, I'm going to go over some Google Sheets scripting code to show you how we can create a macro that basically loops through and pulls the lowest stock price during a specific range. So I'll give you an example of what I mean here. So Google Sheets is really great as far as pulling in stock prices. Like if I were to use the Google Finance function, I can specify my ticker, and then I want the price, and let's say my start date is start of 2020 up until the end of 2022. So 2-year stretch. I just want the historical prices. Okay. And what I want to do is pull, let's say, the largest value within that range. So this is not something that I can easily do. There's not a function that's gonna do well, not easily anyways, a max function within a certain range. And I also don't want to have to keep this data in here. I just want to do a lookup one time and pull that value and save it. So to do that, I'm going to need to use create a macro and use some script here. So the max function, really straightforward. I'm just going to select the maximum price that Meta stock price got within a range of 2020 and 2022. So it's $382.18. And so what I want to do is over in column G, I want to save this value. So it says Meta 382.18, and then I want to put other stock tickers on here, and for it to cycle through and do the same thing. So what it's going to do is replace the ticker here, repopulate this, get that max value, and then copy it into here. So that way I can just run a macro one time to do all these things and go over and over again, as opposed to me, let's say, copying this function over and over again, and now I've got a bunch of columns here that I really just need to use one time. So that's my end goal here. So here's how I'm going to make it work. So I'm going to open up AppScript here, and I'm going to create a new function. I'm going to go over how that function is going to work. So I'm just going to leave the default my function. That's fine. And I'm going to create a variable for the sheet, which is going to just be equal to the spreadsheet app dot get active sheet. So it's just going to run on the active sheet. What I'm also going to do is create, I'm going to determine how many rows of values, how many tickers I've got here that I want to cycle through. So let's say I want to also go through, pull Alphabet stock, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, and Tesla. So I want to cycle through all these. Now, rather than trying to code that in there, I'm gonna cheat a little bit and just use the count a function to count the number of values in column G. So there's 6. So I'm gonna call this my ticker count variable. Ticker count, and this is gonna make it easy to reference in my code. So I'm gonna say var last row now is going to be equal to the sheet, which I created up in this step, dot get range. And if I'm using get range, I can use a named range. So ticker count, and then dot get value. So now I've got that value for the last row. So it's going to say number 6. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is create a loop. So I'm going to say for, open up parentheses, I equals 1. I'm starting from 1. And I'm going to say as long as I is less than or equal to the last row, then I'm going to continue on with this loop, and I'm going to increment it just by 1. Close that out and open up some more code here. So it's going to loop, it's going to do this loop, and it's go through this every single time. So first, I'm going to write some notes here to say, okay, first I'm going to change the ticker symbol. So if I go back to my ticker symbol, it's in cell B1. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is do sheet.getRange B1.setValue, and this value is going to be equal to sheet.getRange, is going to be column G and I. Okay, and I'm going to say get value, close it up. So it's going to set the value. It's going to get the range in B1. So it's getting that range, and it's going to set the value of B1 to the value that's in column G and the letter and the variable I. So the variable, we're starting at 1 here, right? 1 is meta. So I'm going to clear this out just so this is empty. So it's going to start with meta's symbol, and as it loops through, it's going to go through each one of these cells. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up until that last row, right? And so it's going to get that value. So it's going to set the value in B1 based on those corresponding values in column G. Next, what I'm going to do is copy the maximum value, and I'm going to create a variable called result. And this is going to be equal to the sheet get range, and I'm going to create a name range for result here, get value. Okay, and now for the result, it's going to be this value here. So I'm just going to create a named range here, because what I'm going to do is basically in that first line of code, I'm replacing the cell value here with that ticker symbol. And so that's going to update this formula. And it's going to update all these stock prices, which is going to update this maximum value. It's going to give a different maximum value. And that's going to be my result variable. So I'm getting the result, or getting the value from this result variable, right? Getting the value from that result. And then the last thing I'm going to do is go to sheet, get range, and now column H, which is right next to G, obviously, and plus I dot set value result. And so what this is going to do is going to do H1. It's going to set that value equal to the result, right? So it's pulling in this value into here. Okay. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to loop through all that. So now what I'm going to do is save this. And so what I can do now is hit the run button, and it's going to run the code. Go back into my sheet, and as you can see now, it's got all those tickers populated with their prices. So I could add more to this, obviously, if I wanted to, and just continue adding. Go back in here, run the macro one more time. And now, as you can see, now we've got all those tickers in there. So a convenient way to loop through all this and be able to just have that macro cycle through over and over again. Now, the one thing you could do, to make this a bit easier, is you can add a drawing, and this would effectively act as a button for your macro. So let's say I just pick a square as a shape here, and then edit text. Let's say run macro, save and close. And we've got it in here. So just like a normal Excel a button, you can assign a macro to it. So here I'm just calling it my function. And so we'll assign a script called my function. And if I hit this button, you can see now it's going through all these macros over and over again. So I'm going to clear this out just so you can see that it's actually doing something, because it's overwriting obviously the same values. But now if I click on it, it's going to go through all those one by one and doing the same thing that I wanted to. The difference is I don't have to go back in here, hit the run button. I can just do it from straight within here. So that's how you can create a simple loop function that can replicate all this, especially if you're doing some things with something like the Google Finance function, where you want to look at maybe a specific date range. Maybe you want to do some calculations off of that, because as good as the Google Finance function is, you don't have a lot of flexibility there to say I want to pull the maximum or the minimum price or the average during a specified period. That's what you can't do that kind of in-depth analysis just from the function. And this is where a macro, an app script can make this a whole lot easier for you, because you do your analysis here, you pick, let's say, which value you want to set as the result, paste that into here. And so the code itself isn't overly complex. What we're talking about is just setting the sheet variable, setting the last row, and then doing a loop. We're just changing the ticker, getting that updated result, and putting it in the corresponding column. So I'll leave a link in this video, in the video's description, so that you can easily copy this code if you want to use it, and have a post related to this that walks you through these steps as well, and making it easy for you to incorporate this into your Google Sheets file so that you can do something similar if you wanted to, whether it's the Google Finance function or something else, really, where you can just do the same loop over and over again, and it can just update based on the values, and then paste the corresponding result for those inputs. So hope this helps you and you found this video useful. Thanks for watching.